We are good. Okay. I actually want to share something with you guys. Um, so I got this message the other day, and let's see. So there is a person who did the first course a year ago. Let's see, over a year ago. And I want to read you the message that she just sent me. And I've asked her to write her story out so I can add it. But so she says, I just realized something I had to share. April 12th was day 365, one full year of writing in my gratitude journal. The next day, yesterday, I got keys to our brand new home. Something I always hoped for but never imagined we would be able to afford. Amazing. Feeling so blessed. So I wanted to share it. I was like totally crying, and they built the house, so it's literally a brand new house, not just a brand new house to them. And I know her. I've worked with her, and I won't share too much because I'll wait for her to share her story, but this was definitely something that she never thought possible. And the gratitudes, she's shared other success stories with me about how the gratitude has actually dramatically improved a lot of her emotional state. And so I know that when these things are put into practice, it can be really incredible and life-changing. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So if there are no questions, I am going to go ahead and screen share and get started. Okay, so we are on week 3, and I want to review weeks 1 and 2 really quick. And I did forget something in week 2, so I want to go over that a little bit. But week 1, we talked about how our minds are gardens, and we have these beliefs, and those are like the plants or the weeds. The weeds they're basically the negative ones, and they rob the good plants and the good beliefs the nutrients that they need to kind of flourish. And week 1, we cleaned it out, and that was our forgiveness step. And we needed to identify who has hurt us and who we have hurt and how we have hurt ourselves as well. And we did that process of forgiveness and all of that. And then last week, week 2, we talked about how at some point before you plant the new seeds, the new beliefs, there needs to be this grieving process where you recognize all of the losses that you've had, and you recognize all of the feelings, because if we don't clean up all of it, the new seeds that we plant, if we say we have corn and we have a belief that, whatever belief we took in, maybe it was that if we plant corn at a certain time of year, it will never work, right? Because we do that. We have something bad happen. Our expectations aren't met, but then we start making these mental laws around them. I call them mental laws, but because it's these beliefs, we govern off of them. So these are how superstitious things come about. If we have a red pair of socks and we have to wear them on our Monday games because we happen to win a game on Monday in our red socks, then that's kind of a mental law that we govern by. And if we lose a game on Friday in our Monday red socks, then we know to never wear those red socks again. But it might not have had anything to do with the red socks. So we want to clean out any of the resentment and the fear and the grief around planting corn again. And of course, these are the other beliefs that we're talking about as well, not just the metaphor of the garden and the farming. But we identify the losses, we feel the feelings, feel the emotions, we validate them, and then we ask for healing. And I had some steps to support you in that. And then after we do that, so this was kind of a two-parter lesson. Then we have the new plot of land, and we wanted to map it out and decide what it was that we wanted to plant. So what beliefs are we wanting to plant? What story do we want this time? So we talked about the old story and the new one. And what I forgot to tell you guys was I wanted to encourage you to write out your new story. If you are doing this course because you want to feel more peace, it's going to primarily be around how you experience peace in your life. And if you wanted more financial freedom, it would be about what that looks like, what that feels like. If it was around wanting either a new relationship, a better relationship, or just healing in relationships, write the story about what that looks like. If your current story is, I still really hurt, your new story would include something to the effect of, my heart is at peace and I feel joy and love and calm around this. I encourage you to write it out and then record yourself saying it so that you can listen back to that every day or as many times as you need to. So that is our recap. Are there any questions about that? And if not, I will just keep going. Okay. Hold on a second. I want to make sure that we are. Okay. I don't know why I do that. I always have to double check and make sure that we're recording. I would be so sad if we didn't record it. Okay, so the universal laws at play here. With this, we've decided what it is that we want to plant. And then this week is all about this gestation period, the growth, and being able to receive. So in the plant process, we cleaned out, we planted, and now there's a period of time where you don't necessarily see anything from your seed. It's starting to sprout. We're feeding it. There's good nutrient-dense soil in there. We're feeding it with sunshine and with water. And in our minds, what we're doing with this is we're feeding these new beliefs with positive belief thoughts. And we are also feeding the whole thing with inspired action steps. So the law of belief is basically whatever you believe with conviction in your thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's supposed to be will come into the physical. So if we believe that it's going to be a good day, even if it's not a great day, we will still find ourselves handling it well, so it can actually be a good day. If we believe that it's going to be a horrible day, we will start looking for the ways that it's actually a bad day. And so with this practice of gratitude, what we're actually doing is tuning our eyes into seeing like a frequency that's always out there, but we didn't necessarily see it before. So there's actually another law, but I'm just briefly going to share this. It's like when our brains are like the Facebook algorithms. And what I mean by that is whatever we start focusing on, we will start to see it everywhere. And you can see that when you search for something on Amazon, you'll see an ad for it on Facebook. If you're talking about it in a post, it'll show up in Facebook. So our minds basically do this as well, where It's like when you search for a new vehicle and you think it's rare, and then all of a sudden you just start seeing it everywhere. Let's see. Yep, yep. So when you buy a white Suburban, you start seeing white Suburbans on the road all over the place. Yes, so we said that at the same time. And I had that literally with the white Suburban. Well, it was a different brand, but I also had it. This is really interesting that you brought that up. So we actually had a Yukon, a white Yukon. And so this goes both ways. So we actually had it stolen from our driveway. We had cleaned it up. We are going to sell it. And we went out one morning. My husband went out one morning to take our kids to school, and it was gone. And it was really hard. And it was like totally a hard time of our lives. And it ended up being a really big blessing in disguise because we tried selling it, and it was an older one. And in Kelley Blue Book you can get different levels of it's either poor condition, fair condition, excellent condition, and depending on how nice it is, that's how much you can get out of it. Well, it had been completely gutted from like the center of the car up, and everything else was left in there. So the conclusion that we had kind of come to, and with the police involved, is it really looked like it had been gutted so that another car could be fixed. And because everything else, like really, the back leather seated row was still there, and they could sell those if they wanted to. But so that was left. Everything from the center back was left in there. And literally, I actually can show you guys pictures. Literally everything from the front forward was gone. And because it was so wiped out, the insurance company couldn't determine if it was in poor condition, fair condition, or excellent condition. So they had to give us the excellent condition price. So we actually got back more than we would have had we sold it. But the reason I share this is after that day, I had decided in my mind that someone out, I don't know why, I'm either going to cry or laugh, but someone else was driving half of my car. So at that point, every time, and I would see them everywhere. And I did a couple posts where it was like, universe, why are you taunting me? I saw them everywhere, and I thought, is that half of my car? Is that half of my car? And so my mind had really tuned into seeing it everywhere, but it was kind of in the negative, because then it brought up, is that my car? Is that my car? And yes, God is totally in control. So gratitude of this, well, okay. I love how these lessons come about, because I didn't know which example I was going to share in this course, and I now know which one it is. So thank you, Colette, for talking about white Suburbans. Let me talk about the laws, and then we'll come back to this lesson, like the meat of it and the metaphor and the analogy and the story. So the law of gestation is that everything has an amount of time that it takes to reach full development. And we talk about gestation most of the time when it comes to pregnancy. And some things take longer and some things take a shorter amount of time. For instance, for a human being, it's about 40 weeks. For an elephant, it's about 22, 23 months, if I'm remembering correctly. It's just under 2 years. So, with this law, though, I need you guys to understand that our actions can actually speed things up or slow them down. And that's where we come into the law of perpetual transmutation. Some things do have a period of time that it will take, but it's not like there's a determined amount of time that it's set for everyone. So I'll come back to that. The law of perpetual transmutation is that everything is either coming into or out of physical form. And this is often talked about when it comes to water. And you can have water in a gas form, in a liquid form, in a solid form, and we can have ice, we can have water, we can have steam and like vapor. It can come back down into rain, it can go into snow. And so with this, we also see that there's not a specific cycle that it has to follow. That rain can become snow. That snow can melt and become rain. That rain can land on the ground and then evaporate and go back up into the gas form and go back up into the clouds. And so it can go back and forth. So having said that, when I first started learning about the laws, I was afraid that I would plant these new seeds and then I would get really impatient and I would symbolically pull up the seed to see if it was working. And then I would have all of this doubt. And so it would be like I plucked out the seed and then I had to start all over again. But the way that it works is that we can have a moment where we doubt, but then as long as we come back into that belief again, we don't have to start over. We can just, the seeds are a little forgiving. For instance, if we forget to water it one day, it's not going to just completely die. If there's a day where it's overcast and it didn't get ample sun that day, it's not going to just completely die. There is some leeway here. But the focus is, if there is that doubt, if there is that shadow, or we forget to water it that day, we go back into these inspired action steps so that it can get the right nourishment and support that it needs. Is this making sense so far? Okay, thank you. Let's actually talk about the quality of nourishment really quick. So the quality of the nourishment matters, right? So the way that I differentiate or distinguish between the two of these is, if we were to water the plant with clean, good water, it will probably grow really well. And if that water is contaminated with chemicals that are not supportive, it can poison the plant and then things can happen to it. So it can turn into something like, it can be deformed, it can have issues. And if we have positive thoughts, that's like the good, clean water. And if we have the negative thoughts, that's kind of like the version of the poison that we were talking about. And the important part about this is always taking inspired action steps. And the metaphor and analogy story that I will give you for this is, water is not always good. A lot of water is not always good. And I learned this. I don't have a green thumb. My kids tease me that I have a black thumb, actually. And I lived in Arizona for a very long time, at least 20 years, and never failed. I would get little cactuses or succulents, and I would think, I can do this. I can do this. Like, these live on their own outside and no one has to water them. And I actually had killed a few of them, and I realized it was because I was overwatering them, because I just thought that more is better. Or, oh no, I didn't water them, so then I overwatered them. And it taught me a really great lesson when it came to this as well, because had I truly been listening to my own inner guidance, and had I been feeling into the needs of the plant, I could have realized, okay, it does need a little bit of water, but only a little bit. And so I'll give a little bit, and a level of trust and patience is necessary in these steps. And I'm not a fan of patience. It's not something that comes really easily for me. It's something I have to actively work at. And yeah, I'm not alone in this. So having trust in the process, trusting that the baby will be ready at 40 weeks, trusting that there's a baby in there, and at 30 weeks not deciding, I'm just let's take baby out because I'm not sure. And there's other reasons that we would need to do this, but we won't get into those. But we don't dig up the seed to check it because we want to leave it. We don't want to damage it at all. We don't want to risk it dying. And we want to just leave it in there, receiving those nourishments and allowing it to do its job, and trusting that the seed knows what it's doing, trusting that all of these things that we're being prompted to do are working. So trusting all of that. Let's go back really quick. So the story that I love for this is it's the old Cherokee teaching, but where I saw this and I loved it is in the Disney movie Tomorrowland. And I encourage you guys actually to watch that after this lesson. And in it, the daughter, and then Tim McGraw's character is the dad. He talks about this old Cherokee teaching. And so this man teaches his grandson, basically, it says, "A fight is going on inside me. It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." And he continued and said, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too." The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" And the old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed." And I love this story because it so beautifully portrays how we get those good seeds to flourish. And we can't plant a seed of hope and prosperity and good abundance and then feed it with anger and sorrow and regret, because what we give it will grow it. And so it's like that poisoned water. We may have had a really great seed, and we may have had soil that was perfect and optimal, and we had the right amount of watering and the right amount of sunlight, and all the other conditions were great. But if one of those things were poisoned, like the water, it would potentially morph that seed into something that we don't recognize. Or it might have, if it was a fruit-bearing plant, it might not have bore fruit, or the fruit would be bad. And in the scriptures, it talks about, by their fruits you shall know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. And I just really love this. So I encourage you guys to actually watch the Tomorrowland movie, because it basically teaches everything that is in this course to a degree, and talks about how what we focus on grows and how we can change things by our beliefs and by our focus. So this week I'm going to talk about the homework and then explain the whys and all of that. And some of you have done this before, or you're in a couple other of my courses, and I ask you to do this as well. So if you've done this recently, you don't have to ask again, but I do want you to spend some time in this. So ask at least 5 to 10 friends to tell you what they like, love, and or are grateful for with you. That's kind of a funny way to say it. And if you don't want to do it one-on-one, you don't want to text someone or ask someone, you can post it on social media. And with this, I typically say, I'll post something in the group that gives you the wording, and then it takes a level of the vulnerability out of it, because it's an assignment, and so it's not so scary to be like, "Hey, can you tell me what I'm good at?" But something along the lines of, hey, I've got an assignment. I need to ask 5 to 10 people, or just I need to ask people what I'm good at, what they're thankful for with me, things that they like or love about me, anything. So do that, and if you have to post it and then not come back to it for a little bit because you're worried that no one's going to comment, or just post it and then let go of expectation. And so this is the law of detachment. Try to disconnect from it meaning something about you. I have had it where some people have asked and their beliefs were so strong that that no one loves them. It kind of energetically hides the post. And you'll notice sometimes you see stuff and you just kind of don't feel like you're supposed to post. Sometimes that's the person's negative belief at play that's saying, don't connect with me. People don't like me. So I encourage you to post it and just send it out and let it be what it is, and don't make it mean anything about you either way. Having said that, after you post it, I want you to notice what comes up for you. Do you accept what is being said? Are you rejecting it? Are you having all of the thoughts of why this is a lie? You know, they say that you're good at such and such, or you're really kind, and you're like, oh, but I'm not because, you know, da 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 da. Do you feel the need to reciprocate? Do you feel like you need to give back? So they give you a compliment and you need to give back a compliment and then more. And I want you to, you can take notes, you can journal about the dynamic that comes up for you. When it comes to abundance or receiving good things, I still work through it, but I used to have the belief that I never wanted to be a burden for anyone else. And that took form in, if anyone gave me anything, compliment, money, gifts, service, help, anything, I wanted to give back what they gave in some form and more, because I didn't want to be indebted to them. I didn't want to be indebted to anyone. And what we need to look at in this is the cycle of receiving and giving. And I think that we say it backwards. Many people say giving and receiving, and sometimes we need to flip it. Sometimes we need to be in a receiving space in order to give. Because if our mental, emotional, physical, spiritual bank accounts are empty, we will have nothing to give. And so that's why this is the receiving week, and we need to focus on getting things in so that we can then give out. But this week is not reciprocating. So receive and then just say thank you. And at some point, so if you've done this before and you have a post that you can go back to, what I encourage you to do is read each comment and receive it in. And that can look like you doing physical things. You can like imagine bringing it into your heart, or you can just lay palms open or sitting and just feel what it feels like to receive those compliments. Big deep breaths, and you just receive those. Another thing that we can do to try to support ourselves, so we're in the nourishing phase and the receiving phase, is we're going to trace our heart meridian, and I'll try to stay on camera for this. So it starts underneath the arm right here and comes down and off our pinky finger. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I just use my hand and then I go like this. And sometimes I flick it off to clean things out. I'm actually going to take that off. And I'm just nourishing it. So the meridians are, if you know about acupuncture, acupressure, the meridians are energetic pathways that just flow through our body and take energy to different areas. And in acupuncture, they use the needles to put it into the spaces, typically where there are blockages. And so as they do this, it'll help clean up those blockages and get things moving again. So the left is the receiving side, and the right is the doing and giving side. So this is it's not typically, but it's the female side. And I know I'm probably backwards for you guys. So left is receiving, right is doing, and masculine side. So I would love for you to start with the left and get that receiving going, and then you can do it on the right as well. Another thing that we can do with this is the Gratitude Essential Oil Blend that is in the journal. And I just saw the journal, and there's a little typo in there that we fill the rest of it with like filler or dilution oil. I use fractionated coconut oil. And that's 4 drops bergamot, 3 drops wild orange, 2 drops geranium, and 2 drops white fir, or you can use these substitutions. And you can, a couple things you can do. You can put that on your heart, right over here. You put the roller bottle on. So I actually have one right here. This is the gratitude one. So you can do this recipe and fill the rest with fractionated coconut oil, or you can multiply that recipe if you want to. So you just roll it on. You can roll it on the meridian, or you can put it on the wrists or the bottoms of the feet. Please be mindful though, the bergamot and the wild orange are oils that make you photosensitive. So you don't want to go to a tanning bed or be out in the sun for about 24 to 48 hours after applying that, because you'll burn more easily. Okay. So this week, I could feel some anxiety coming up with that. So this week is all about nourishing and receiving. And then the next part of this lesson is being able to be thankful for the trials. And here's the thing about gratitude. It's really stinking hard to be in the midst of a trial and to be in the very beginning of a trial and someone tell you to be thankful for something. Someone tell you to, like, if someone came to me on that first day that my car was stolen and was like, oh, be thankful for your trials, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, hear me and validate me that my car was lost, and be sad with me that my car was stolen. And so that's why this course is designed the way that it is, because we want to get you these steps to be able to get to gratitude. And those first 2 weeks were crucial for this week to be successful for you. And again, Colette, thank you so much for giving that example of the white Suburban, because I was able to be thankful for my car being stolen from my driveway in the end. I saw the blessings. I saw where I could be thankful. And I'm not saying that you have to have a blessing before you can be thankful. What we're actually going to do with this one is those list of losses. If you can go back to that, I don't know if you've burned them yet or if you've trashed them yet, but if you can remember them, I would encourage you to write them down. And with each one, you can do it in meditation and in prayer and in pondering. Ask what the lesson was. Ask what blessings came out of them, because there can be good that can come out of any situation. Let's see. Yeah, we are in the scriptures commanded to be grateful in all things. And it's such a beautiful commandment, because it's a way of getting us to not stay stuck in the darkness of it and the hardships and the pain and the turmoil. And it's, if we can find the gratitude in something, we can find the joy in something. And joy and gratitude are the two best ways to create. We create more goodness in that space. So go back to those trials and ask, what was the good that came out of this? It's not that this situation was a good thing. It wasn't a good thing that my car was stolen. Like, that wasn't a good action. But we had some really great things come from it. And Some of these are going to be really challenging for you guys, especially if there's some severe trauma here. And so just go at your own pace. Go with what you feel comfortable with, and take your time with this. You don't have to do all of this in 30 days. It's a great structure, but if you need to come back through the lessons, do that. And write down the things that you can be grateful for. When if we've felt alone our whole lives and we've felt super disconnected, and that was a catalyst to get us to find how to connect on a really deep level, we can be thankful for the catalyst, thankful for, what made us feel really disconnected in the first place, the things that made us feel really lonely in the first place. And we can be thankful for them because we see that they were a catalyst to getting us to something better. And it's actually kind of how we're wired. There are some other laws when we talk about plateaus, and there's a rhythm. I'm trying to find something that I can draw on that will be clear for you guys to see. There's a law of rhythm, and it basically tells us that there's going to be an up and a down, an ebb and a flow. And what many of us think that it is something like this, right? I totally feel like the guy in Blue's Clues with my little my little booklet. And sorry, I have kids. If you have kids, you'll appreciate that. But that's not always how it is. It's not that, we have an equal bad and we have an equal good, and the good is coming, so expect the bad again, and it's bad, so there's going to be a breakthrough on the other side. And it's not like this is our limit. A lot of people have the belief that this is as good as it gets. But if we can see, if we can tip it a little bit, these aren't looking right. So if it was like this, so if this is what we were believing before, if we tip it just at a 45-degree angle, we can have this. Sometimes we have this up, and then this feels like a really low low. And when we get to right here, we often perceive that we're lower than this. But in actuality, this compared to this feels like that. But so when we get in those moments and we look back and we're like, I'm not doing good. But then you compare it to where you were a year ago, and you start feeling like, okay, I'm still doing way better than I used to be. So this is good. This is good. Like, this is to be expected. This is just a universal law. But know that this can often feel just like a plateau, and it will encourage us to dig deep again and do more. Dig deep and do more. Do deep and do more. And so this is the growth of learning that comes with it. It's similar to when we do workouts, and you'll often find that you'll hit a plateau either with your nutrient choices, so your food choices, a diet plan, and you'll find a plateau with the exercises that you're doing. And that's to keep us continuously adapting and doing different things. And it's this way in other areas as well. We don't want to get complacent, and we don't want to just hit, they're really not great things. I shouldn't say not great, because it's what it is. This would be really boring, and we wouldn't really learn anything. We would just stay exactly how we are, and it'd just be like monotone all the time. monotone lives. And when we can see the beauty and the goodness that came from those trials, and so this is what we're actually connecting to. What we're connecting to is, this is the trial that got us to dig deep and to do something different. And then we look at the growth that came out of it. The trial and then the growth. And there's actually, I recognized another law, and I don't know if anyone else has recognized it yet, but that there's, and I don't know the name of it, if it would be there, but it's that what you're looking for, the blessing is always after a trial of faith. And this is where the faith needs to come in. We will have that test, we'll dig deep and we'll go up, but it will always come after this. It doesn't just, we have growth and nothing to get us to go. And it's not just like, oh, it's super easy, we're just skyrocketing up. There's going to be these moments, and this is where our faith grows consistently along with it. Okay. Big breath. So our news story that we talked about a little bit last week and then in the beginning, another homework is to listen to your story. So you wrote it, hopefully you'll record it and listen to it, or at least read through it and remind yourself. And then continue to listen to the gratitude affirmations MP3, and that's on my webpage. I think it's hollybuehler.com/radical-gratitude. So this is a way to nourish yourself as well. And I didn't put it on here, but self-care. Do something for yourself to do self-care this week. We're asking for compliments from other people. We're listening to the mind stuff. If you can find something to do for your mind, body, and spirit, you're going to be in a really good space. And the next week will be really, really awesome. I'm actually feeling to go back just a bit. When I talk about radical gratitude, this week is all about facing the things that we have been super, super not grateful for. And we've actually, in our personal lives, we've had some stuff going on, and it's actually really interesting. So we were 2 days into a bit of a family crisis, and I was really, really struggling. And I had somebody talking about being grateful for something, and I was just like, I was not heard. I was not validated. There's not a lot of compassion or empathy. And I went back to this the first 2 weeks of the lesson, and I see how valuable and how important it is for you to be able to recognize what has gone on, grieve it, forgive it, and work through all of that. And then you can start seeing them with those clean eyes, looking for what you can be thankful for. But if you start throwing gratitude at people, like telling them they need to do it, and they're not in the space for that yet, they haven't gone through those steps, it's not going to go well. In fact, it may actually shame and guilt them and drive them deeper into what they were experiencing, so it's harder for them to get up to the gratitude. So really quickly, the nourishing protocol is that gratitude blend, and you can place it over your feet and your heart, and you can do the meridian, you can do the wrists as well. And then I want you to add cypress. So the reason for the cypress at this point is, if you can do it over the wrists and make sure that it's diluted, this is the one of flow and motion. And so this is going to drive it down deeper and get this to flow. If we are unable to receive, the give and receive cycle is connected. So if we're not functioning on the receiving part, we will be in a cycle of giving and we will be completely depleted, hands down. If you struggle with depletion in any realm of your life, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, anything, it's because you are not in the nourishing and receiving space. It's not balanced and it's not connected. So this is really, really important. And again, if we're empty, we need to receive first in order to be able to give back. So the reasons for these is the bergamot is this oil of self-acceptance. And in general, so this gets us into a space of being really okay with ourselves where we're at. And even with the situation of it, kind of being at peace with it. Like, yeah, this is what it is. And that's okay because we can work with this. We can really work with this. Orange is, wild orange is the oil of abundance. So we're going to connect to that goodness out there. We want it to be good abundance. And when we mix it with these other oils, we get an abundance of them. We want to be in love and trust. We want to trust the process. We want to trust the world. We want to trust ourselves and our others. And then white fur is that generational healing. So we can start releasing all of those generational patterns and programs. And optional, you can add in a drop of spikenard. It's not the best smelling oil, but it is the oil of gratitude. So I personally wouldn't use it by itself. I would put just a drop into the blend if you'd like. So those are also homeworks. And let's see, that is the end of that. So we will stop screen sharing. Any questions so far? Okay. Go back to my notes. There was one other thing that I wanted to share. Okay. Let me feel into what it is. Unless it comes up, that might be the end of our lesson. So to recap, okay, so it's something about, okay, so when you're in the space of going back to the hurts, if these hurts are still fresh or you haven't made it past, if you can't get to the point where you see the gratitude and all of these things, let it be okay if you can't see it yet. And just, you can have a moment where you say a prayer, you do a meditation, you basically say, I want to be released from this. And when we go into that surrendering, I'm super physical. So if you need to write down what it is that you're trying to release, and maybe it's resentment and bitterness or towards a person or whatever, or fear that you won't get what you want. Okay, so this is about trusting the process of everything, not just trusting the process of the forgiveness and the grieving and the healing, but also trusting that God can create whatever it is really that you want. If you want peace in your home, if you want financial freedom, if you want to be able to do what you love, but you can't figure out the how. It was really this, I was feeling this fear around not knowing how to create, not knowing how to figure it out. And it might come a little bit later. There's something else here. Be okay if you're not quite in the gratitude space, the radical gratitude of everything, especially if you're going through something hard. But also don't surrender to the belief that it will never change. Stay open to possibilities. And if you are not able to stay open to possibilities, figure out what doesn't align with staying open to possibilities. So fear doesn't. So I would, personally, this is how I would do it, is I'm releasing, I'm letting go of fear, my doubt, my worry, God, doesn't love me, or my wants don't matter. I don't know how to figure it out. So this is how I would do this. And this is where I really I break things down, because I'm not able to do the, oh, let it go, and it's just all fine. So this is what I would do. I don't know if you can see those. But my fear, it's probably backwards for you. My fear, my doubt, my worry. God doesn't love me. My wants don't matter. And I don't know how. So I would literally do something like this. And I would, yeah, backwards. Oh, not backwards? Okay, that's good. Getting all of this out of my mind onto paper, and then I would go through, like, personally, I have a God box. I'll show you guys. I needed this. There's nothing special about this. There's nothing woo-woo about this. This is just how I get stuff out. This is my God box. And what I do is I basically, like, this is my prayer. And I, however you do your prayers, but I basically, have that moment where I'm like, God, please. And not in a begging, because when we beg and we plead, it's still in doubt and fear. Like, please, please, please give us these things. But if we come into it in gratitude, like, I have fear and I have doubt and I have worry and I'm afraid that you don't love me and I'm afraid of all of these things, but I am willing to let these go. And so I give them to you and I receive the healing that you will give me. And so then, after I've done that, I surrender it to the box. I put it in, it goes into the box, and that's where it stays. You don't have to do all in the negative form. So you can, because the box can get really, you can look at it and be like, oh, that's where all my worry and doubt is. You can say it in the positive sense and say, I am so thankful that I've surrendered my fear and I'm now in trust and I'm now in faith and I'm now in hope. You can do that however you need to do it. Sometimes I need to get the negative out. And basically when I look at this and think, God is working on my stuff. He's working on it and all of his helpers are working on it. And I trust that it's being taken care of. So if I don't know how something is going to happen, if you, trying to think of an example, do you guys have an example of something that you're wanting? And you can send it to me so people don't know who. But I keep thinking about, like, jobs and money. And if you want something specific, you want to be able to spend time doing certain things, you want to be able to spend resources doing certain things, or you want to change something and do it differently, because this is coming up actually because my husband and I are kind of in this space where he would like to do something different and we don't really know how. We don't know how it's going to happen, but we can set the intention. So in the creation phase, it's think, speak, do. Think, write, do. Speak and write is kind of in the same space. And then we just trust that it'll start working itself out. And we trust that we don't have to necessarily do everything. We let tender mercies come in. We let inspired action come in. Okay. So bringing in income that covers all expenses. If right now in your mind with your current circumstances doesn't make sense, we will start trying to, with our current beliefs and our current circumstance, we'll start trying to figure it out, but that often makes it really messy. When we surrender these things and then we go into a space where we're listening to inspired action and we believe that it's possible, but we don't know how it's going to come about, but we trust that all of the inspired action steps that we take daily, those small inspired action steps, will lead up to something bigger. Like in the beginning, the girl that got her house, money was really, really tight when she did the first program. Really, really tight. And when she says that she did not believe that could happen, I truly, I know her. I know how big that belief was, where to tell her that in a year you'll have a brand new house that you guys have, that brand new house, she probably would have laughed. And knowing that you let go of the how and the how gets to be brought to you, but you just stay open to receiving, because that's part of this. If we're not open to receiving, we will also not be open to receiving the synchronicities and the tender mercies and the blessings and the insights and how to do it. So if we're not saying yes to the possibilities, we're saying no to the possibilities. And so when someone comes up and shares a new avenue for you to bring in more income or different incomes, you can change what you're doing, we won't receive that. We'll reject it. We'll feel to push it away. So sometimes we feel yeses and nos based on fear and ego. And so it's our job to make sure that we're really centered and hearing those whispers and we follow them. Does this make sense? Is it helpful? I hope it is. So this week, thank you. This week is all about receiving. Do some self-care, and do those things that we talked about, and then do that post. Will you please, if you do post it, will you tag me, or you can do, so if you can set it to private, or if you set it to public, you can do hashtag Holly Bueller or radical gratitude, and then I can see it. And I will have a special reward. I'll do a giveaway. Depending on how many people post, I will determine how many special things I will give away. But what is it going to be? I will give away one of the gratitude blends, and then I'll have another special offer for people. So if you want to do that, just do that, and then either tag me or do the public post with the hashtag, and then I can find it and I will announce who gets that next week. So awesome. Thank you guys. I have actually decided to keep the videos up because we have people still coming in and I want them to be able to have the first lessons, but it will only be available for like a week after the course is done. So you can still invite people, they can still look at the lessons, and thank you so much for being here and spending the time with me and investing in yourself in this way. So thank you guys so much. And if you have any questions, please let me know. You guys are so welcome. Thank you. So, bye guys.
You're beautiful.
Thank you.